everybody, welcome to a very long time coming review of the DreadX 3 collection. I played this quite a long time ago. We even did a review of The Hunt. That was the fourth one, and just because of how things fall by the wayside, didn't have a chance to cover this one. But we did do an entire stream of it, playing through all 12 of the Spoopy, I'm pretty sure I butchered that right there, games that were featured in it. So for this video, I'm going to run down all 12 of them that I played and kind of give my thoughts on them. So let's begin this little rapid fire entry here. And we are starting things off with Matter Over Mind by Basalt Tower. This is an isometric kind of stealth adventure style game where we play as a sentient blob of conditioner that's trying to escape from a hair facility, and to do that we are going to be, well, taking over people's bodies and using them to move around. So the game itself is positioned more along the lines of kind of each character can get into different areas. You need to get keys to move along. There's collectibles in the form of DNA that you can see in the upper left. It's a fairly short game, but can be on the trickier side if you do get caught, as characters will attack you if you are kind of, sans human here. But it's definitely a delightful little game, and again, cute on the side of, I guess, invasion of the body snatchers kind of gameplay. For our next one that we played, it is Sato Wonderland, made by Nate Barons. And this one, I know it's supposed to be part of the Spoopy collection, but this one can get a little disturbing, I guess. But it starts out kind of sounding like it would be like a Five Nights at Freddy's kind of game. You are the AI handler at a amusement park in the future when one of the robotic mascots have gone a little erratic. And it's up to you to decide what is going on, why is this AI being all weird, and whether to permanently retire it or send it back to service. And you do this by matching dialogue. As you can see in the upper right, as you put things or put text into those two boxes along the bottom left, you'll get different responses, which will unlock more phrases as you move things forward towards a story conclusion. And this is one that it has a really great kind of jump scare to it, which again, if I explain it, it kind of ruins the whole mystery of it. But a great example of a micro horror kind of design, and definitely one that I recommend playing, especially if you're looking for a very quick and somewhat disturbing, I guess, entry here. For our next one, this is Reactor by Dergio Games. Hopefully I didn't butcher that one too. And this one is, I think, far more simplified, or at least in terms of its horror compared to the last. We are the sole human researcher at a far distant research station. Our only companion is a very happy and kind AI that follows us around. And life is good, until one day when we discover a strange element that crash landed onto the asteroid. And things, of course, being a horror game, end up going horribly wrong for us. The gameplay is just pure old first-person kind of adventure style. You're not going to be doing any kind of crazy fighting, and it's more about the experience as opposed to you going full guns blazing trying to explore. But I really do like the aesthetic of this game, and again, it's another great example of a micro horror situation that I don't know if it would necessarily work if this was, turned into a 2 to 3 hour long game. But another great little vignette for horror game fans. Now up, we have the game, and I better make sure I get this title right, Nice Screams at Fun Fair by Moya Horror. And this is kind of in the simulator, or in this case, ice cream shop simulator genre, where we have been tasked at this very strange, probably in another world, fair, in order to serve ice cream to some very normal looking people, like right there. Your job is put the orders in as they come through, get the money, and make sure it goes into the register while that mysterious evil robot looking thing makes sure that you don't try and pocket any of your gains. Throw ice cream at people and continue until the day is over. Now, the game of course has some very unusual kind of looks to it, as you can see with these graphics, and it is another one of those examples of a game that it's very much like, I don't think they could have made it longer, at least in this capacity, without kind of losing the charm and mystique of, well, throwing ice cream at people, as you can see right there. And you can make it through the entire day, you'll be treated to some very trippy visuals and cutscenes to end the game on. And I enjoyed this one, and it's another one like the Wonderland game that I looked at about 2 parts ago, that I would like to see maybe these concepts developed further in terms of like going a little bit more with the mechanics or with these storylines. But for what it is inside the DreadX 3 collection, I think a nice Screams at Funfair was another good entry. For our next game, we turn to one of the longer ones in the DreadX 3 collection. This is Disparity of the Dead, developed by Bryce Butcher? Hopefully I didn't butcher that one as well. And this is a 3D platformer / mystery adventure game, where you play a detective who needs to figure out why the dead have stopped coming to the underworld. And to do that, you are going to have to do some platforming and look for clues and figure out who is responsible for it. So, all the games that we've shown so far in this video, this one definitely has more in terms of mechanics, just with the whole 3D platforming aspect of it. It was, I think, a little janky in some areas, like just trying to maneuver around, but the game itself is a lot bigger than I think you would probably assume if you've only played the other games or the other micro horror style games in the collection, as the space here is rather quite large, and this is a game where you're going to have to search around to find all the major points of interest in order to move things forward. Overall, I like this one, but I think just because of the size of it and just the limited platforming, it was one of the few that I didn't try and finish all the way to the end. But if you are somebody looking for more of a involved experience, I don't know if this one would really be as horror-minded as some of the previous entries, but if you're looking for a platformer to try out from the collection, then definitely give this one a check. Now up we have Betagri, and hopefully I pronounced that one right. This is from Amon 26. And for this game, we play as the lovely manager here of a hotel, whose job it is every night is to complete various tasks on each floor. Go around each floor, there's usually something to clean up, make sure that these machines work, and it's just a very nice and wholesome game. Until something happens, which I won't spoil it here, which then we go on a complete murder rampage through the hotel, killing anyone and everyone that we see. This is another game that, again, that the micro horror design I think works well for it. It's only maybe like 20 minutes, 20-30 minutes give or take, depending on how much you do and how much you explore in it. But it gets the point across, it has a sufficient twist, and it is one of those games that I couldn't see it working in any other like form or pacing with it. Not the longest game by any stretch of the imagination, but another really, I think, good one to look at in terms of the variety of horror or spoopy horror that we have in this game. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have the remaining half of the collection to get to. And as always, if you're interested in my books on design, then be sure to check these out. For entry-level students, we have 20 Essential Games to Study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with horror coming by the end of 2021. For our next game, we turn to Soul Waste. This is developed by Blood Machine. And this is one of the two that I think I spent the least amount of time on, just because of the scope of it. So the concept here is that this is 3D action platforming. It's described as being very much like Sonic Adventure-esque. And I think I would agree with that. Your character moves very quickly. It does have some very slight elements of like Dark Souls, particularly in the level design. Your job is to explore this wasteland, trying to find the missing keys and areas that you need to get to, apparently in order to free God, or free a god I should say. So there's a lot of exploration going on, lots of shortcuts to open, all while you hack, slash, and jump your way through this crazy looking world. The thing that kind of stopped me from playing this game, just because I have so many games on my plate, hence why it took so long for me to get back to the DreadX Collection number 3 here. And this is, again, one of the more meatier entries on this list. And it will definitely take you some time in terms of exploring and figuring out what you just need to do in this place in order to solve it. As you saw right there, I need to basically get crystals to break in order to move along. And like I said, there are shortcuts you can find, but a lot of this is just you doing your platforming thing. And if you are a fan of 3D platformers, I would say give this one a look. Up now, we have Spookware. Now, Spookware is, of course, developed by Adam Pipe and Victor Cross. And this is basically What If WarioWare, but with a spoopy kind of tone to it. This stars the Skelebros, Lefty, Mitty, and Righty, who are trying to watch movies, and those movies come in the form of micro games. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because they do have a episodic full release of Spookware now out with its first episode. My main, I think, complaint about this is that because it uses far more buttons compared to the one button aesthetic or one button design of the original WarioWare games, it can be very hard to know what exactly the control scheme is for a new game just by playing it. And you're going to lose a lot of levels just because. But if you're a fan of micro games and like a spoopy aesthetic to it, then I would say check out Spookware and take a look at the retail version of this that is out on Steam. Now we turn to the game that I spent the least time with when we play this. This is Eden Garden of the Faultless by Modus Interactive. And of all the games I think in this edition of the DreadX Collection, this one is probably the strangest, or at least the most out there in terms of its design. So this is a monster racing sim kind of game, where you need to raise faultless ones, and then feed them, train them, and get them ready for racing in order to compete to figure out the purpose of the grand event. And yes, that is certainly a mouthful of words right there. And like I said, unfortunately, I didn't spend a lot of time on this one because I feel like this would be the slowest game to play when we were doing this all on stream. And it's also, as you can see right here, probably one of the trippier ones. So, while unfortunately I don't have a lot to say about this one, but I would also say that if you are looking for kind of like the most involved experience of the DreadX 3 collection, then Eden Garden of the Faultless, I think, will take that very weirdly looking cake. For our next game, we have one that's a little bit more conventional. This is Bobo, Adventure on Geralds Island by Briogan Hackett. So as you can tell by the footage here, this is a 3D platformer starring a, I guess, reasonably delightful looking character, as you can see here. And the story is that we've arrived onto Gerald's Island to deliver a package. But when we get there, we find that our boat has been sabotaged, and the delightful animal critters of the island are all too happy to help us, and kind of tell us about how they're preparing for a mysterious ritual to keep some kind of being asleep for a long time. But I'm sure that has nothing to do with us, right? So definitely falling on the spoopy, hiding the darkness side of things with Bobo. And Bobo, again, this is just good old-fashioned 3D platforming. The developer says that it's very reminiscent, of course, of Super Mario 64. And you can tell that with kind of how the use of the jumping tech, with a lot of running for long jumps and things along those lines. The main thing about Bobo is that this is a collectathon, as each area will have plenty of MacGuffins, for you to hunt down, which will move things on and take you to the next area. There's a little bit of unlocks, including finding new shortcuts and mysterious things that could change the ending of the game. But all in all, this is one of the more straightforward games on the collection. If you're not a fan of 3D platformers, this one is not going to change your mind. But if you do like running around collecting coins and jumping on top of buildings, then give Bobo a shot. We now turn to one maybe the most delightful, almost cursed game of this collection. This is Chip's Tips, developed and starring Torple Duke, as well as his dog, who I don't know if the dog's name is Chip or not in real life. But Skip here is trying to get a party together, and he's going to need your help as well as Chip's in order to find all the things he needs to get this party started. And while he's still talking with that very haunting voice filter on, your mission is to guide him around in, well, this kind of style in order to solve the various puzzles. In terms of adventure game logic, this is definitely on the later side of things. And if you're expecting, missed level puzzles in this game, you're not going to find that. Instead, you're going to find Skip walking around, and of course, Chip just hanging out. Overall, Chip's Tips is definitely more on the style side of things. And I found this to be, quite delightful to play. Again, if you're looking for charm, and you enjoy dogs, and whatever kind of party is going on here, then I would say give Chip's Tips a play. And if Torple Duke needs somebody else to do voice acting for one of his games, then please get in touch, because I would love to be one of these characters. For the final game of the DreadX 3 collection, we have Submission by Corpse Pile. So this is, I would say this would be my favorite game of the collection, just because of what we're doing here. So the story is that we are trying to finish designing this happy little game about going to a farm, collecting apples, doing all kinds of very nice and not spooky or weird things at all. But as it turns out, our game is, not working. And in order to fix it, we need to go within a game within a game within a few other games in order to find code in order to put this all together. Not only does Submission kind of give you the most accurate representation of what game development is, it also gives us the most important warning that game development will inevitably lead to you possibly summoning the devil or some demon trying to kill you. So the gameplay itself is about mixing and matching various bits of code, which in turn will affect different environments. Those environments will then unlock either keys or other things that you'll need in order to move the story along and hopefully get your game submitted in time. And I always like when we have these kinds of game within a game kind of things, and it is a very interesting concept for a title. It's not on the hard side by any stretch, and once you kind of figure out the logic at play, then submission should be a very quick entry for you. But again, another great idea, another great concept of this kind of micro horror, that it lasts just long enough once again to get its point across without being, padded out or feeling like we're just going through the motions. And with all that said, we can finally say that we've wrapped up the DreadX 3 collection. If you're interested in the games, you'll find a link to the store page down below. And be sure to check out my review of the Hunt, which is the 4th collection from DreadX. And I'd like to thank the developers for putting out this very interesting collection of games. If I submit a game for me to look at for a future video and stream, please get in touch. Do all the liking and subscribing people keep telling you to do, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.